Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another video. So in this video, I'm going to discuss about how to prepare for interviews if you are looking for UI development or React roles. I will talk about the topics, how to plan your trainings, and the links from where you can learn. And the best part is that this preparation guide is prepared after discussing with my friends who are working in the top companies and interviewing a lot of candidates. One of them is working as a senior developer in a German-based company and the other one is working in a technology consulting firm in Hong Kong. So this is a foolproof training plan that can prepare you for the UI and the React roles. So if this sounds interesting, then stick around. Also don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. So let's get started. Before we go into our today's main topic, I want to quickly give you all a shout out on a beautiful career program designed by Testbook. For all those who want to build their career as a full stack developer and want to work with big companies. Let me give you key highlights of this program. You will get 65 plus video lessons with 30 plus modules and 50 plus live stream classes and more than 95 hours of live sessions. You will get 2 months internship with certificate where you will build portfolio with 5 hands-on projects and you will get lifetime access and support. Along with that, you will have the project-led curriculum, mentorship and a doubt-solving sessions one-to-one for 24/7. Now during this program, what you will learn in terms of the skills? You will learn about the Java and JavaScript, data structures and algorithm, HTML5, CSS, MERN projects, SQL, NoSQL database, Spring Boot, microservices, and cloud native. There's a lot to learn in this program. Now let me show you the program structure and the projects that you will build during this program. So you will build the static LinkedIn profile, you're going to build the quiz application, you will build the Quora clone, you will build the Airbnb clone, capstone project, and you will learn the concepts of object-oriented programming along with the data structures and algorithm. And all this project will help you to get the future job profiles like full stack developer, front-end developer, back-end developer, web developer, or a web designer, MERN developer, and an app developer, and many more with the big product based companies. Now let me show you how you can enroll in this program. So you can click on the apply coupon, and in this you can use my coupon code which is DPM20, and then you just click on the apply and the coupon code will be applied. Now you will see that you have a discounted price and you just need to click on the buy now. And with this, you will get the extra 20% off on all the career programs that are provided by the Testbook Skills Academy. You will find all the information and the links in the description of the video so that you can check it out later on. So first we have to focus on the basics of the UI development, which actually makes the base of our development roles. And we start with the HTML. So in the HTML, we should learn about the semantic elements, page structure of our web page, HTML tags that are available and the purpose of using those tags, forms, items, and data attributes, which allow us to store extra information on the semantic HTML tags. I have a video on the HTML crash course that can help you with the basics of HTML and covered most of the topics which I have mentioned. Next, we should now start styling our web pages and focus on the appearance of our web pages. We should understand how CSS position works and how we can place the elements on the web page. We also want the web pages to be responsive and we can view them on mobile devices as well. So we understand about the media queries, Flexbox and CSS grid. Along with that, we should also have an understanding of pseudo elements, which is adding an element tag in a page without using the HTML tag, and CSS units, as you might have seen some projects have pixels as the units. Some have em, rem, and some might have used the virtual height, virtual width, percentages, etc. So we have a playlist that you can follow to learn CSS, starting from a very basic CSS crash course and explaining each of the topic like position, media queries, units, Flexbox, and CSS grid. Now it's time to learn about how to build dynamic pages and offer our users to interact with our web page. So for that, we need to learn JavaScript, which is a very powerful programming language. We should have a good understanding about functions, arrays, objects, promises, fetch, async await, ES6 syntax, events, DOM, local storages, etc. So I have covered most of the topics in my videos like JavaScript crash course for beginners. For ES6, I have few videos where I have covered in-depth destructuring, async await, promises, callback functions, asynchronous versus synchronous programming, this keyword in JavaScript, and many more. You can check the playlist which can help you to gain knowledge for your interviews. Another good source of learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is the MDN documents, where you can find more detailed articles and topics with example. So this is the documentation, and if I want to learn more about the HTML, I will click on the HTML and I can have more details about the HTML. Similarly, if you want to learn about the CSS, you can go for CSS and you can also go for the JavaScript. Now, once we are familiar with the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it's time for you to start building small projects like calculator, to-do list, login page, animated navigation toggle, and practice what you have learned, and do self-reading of the MDN web doc and explore Stack Overflow for the problems you face while building projects. Next, we can now start with the React preparation for interviews. So for the first, let's start with the React fundamental topics, which forms the base of our React knowledge, and that includes the JSX element, which allows us to write the HTML-like syntax inside the JavaScript file, which is rendered on the browser. And we can also embed the expressions in the JSX. Next is the virtual DOM. So React uses virtual DOM to read, write, and that is the reason React is very fast, as operations in real DOM is costly. Virtual DOM is simply the virtual representation of the DOM elements in the form of JS objects. Next is the components and props. So components in React are the basic building blocks, and props are the properties that you pass in these components that can be used by the JSX or building logic for the components. Basically, think of the prop as some data that you need to display in your component JSX. Alright, next we talk about the list and keys. It's very important to learn how to handle the list in React and display them using JSX, as most of the time while working on the React projects, you will get the data in the form of arrays or objects, and then you have to display that data on the screen. So for that, we should know list and add unique key to the list rendered on the browser. Next is the handling events. We should also understand how to build user interactivity, like handling the click event, keyboard on change of an input element, and how to pass arguments to the event handlers. Next is the data fetching. So every project has to integrate with the APIs to fetch the data from the server. So you can use either the fetch API or you can use the very popular Axios library to make the API request for your application. Next, we should have the understanding of the form handling, where you should be able to handle multiple inputs, text area, and select text and get access to the data that the user entered in the form. Next is the component lifecycle. It has a special methods in it which are invoked to run some code when the component mounts and unmounts. The lifecycle methods and their effects can be used in class and the function components. So, in-depth knowledge for the component lifecycle is required when you go for an interview. Next topic is the routing. So we should be able to create multiple components and route through those components using React Router DOM library. Create multiple pages and each page as a component, and routing will help us to navigate between the pages. So to cover all these topics, what you can do is first you can watch the videos that already available on the channel. Learn React.js with project. For data fetching, you can watch the React Axios CRUD with JSON. For form handling, you can watch the form validation using React. Apart from that, the other two resources that can be used to grasp good understanding of the fundamentals is the React official documentation. So this is the React official documentation, and from the drop down you can learn all the main concepts, advanced guides, hooks, and you will find all the information related to the React on this documentation. And the other documentation which I want to refer is the MDN docs. So MDN web docs has also a good articles on the React with examples that can help you to gain more knowledge on the React. Next is the higher order components. So HOC is an advanced technique in React for reusing component logic. It is just a function that takes in a component and adds some logic to it and then returns you a new component. And it is very commonly used in third-party libraries like Redux, React Router DOM. I have a dedicated video on the higher order component which is explaining the HOC in depth and showcase a practical example with a use case. The next topic is the essential React hooks, as function components are the modern way of writing React applications as they are easy to write like any other JavaScript functions, and React hooks are the special functions that provide different lifecycle and the side effects in the function component. Here is the list of the hooks that you should know in depth before going for interview. Use state for managing local state of the component. Next is the use effect to get the side effects and the component lifecycle. Use ref to access the DOM elements and persist values between components we render. Next is the custom hook, which are reusable functions. When we have component logic to be used in multiple components, we just extract the logic into a custom React hook. Lastly, for complex states, we can also make use of a use reducer hook and a use context for accessing provided context values. So we have a complete playlist for the React hooks where I have covered each React hook in depth with a practical example. Alright, the next important topic for the React interview is the state management and Redux. So state management is a way of communication and sharing data across components. You can think of a state as a simple JavaScript object. So the first one is the context API, which is a popular for simple applications with less complexity, and you should have a knowledge about how to set up and use the context in the application. I already have a video which covers context API in depth with a practical example, and you can understand the standard way of how to set up it in your project. Next is the Redux, which is an open source JavaScript library for managing and centralizing application state. So it is the most commonly used library for React applications, and the point here is to understand the analogy of the Redux. Next is the Redux toolkit. Here we should learn about how to use it in the project, set up and configure the store, slice and understand the data flow of the application. Next topic here in Redux is to understand the Redux lifecycle of the data flow and operations. We understand how the data flows between the action creator, actions, dispatch, reducer, and finally the store. Lastly is the Redux middleware, which helps in running the side effects for async logic and data fetching from the API. The popular middleware like Redux Thunk and Redux Saga. So now let's see the sources from where you can learn about the Redux. So we have a couple of videos that covers the Redux in depth. The first one is the Redux overview and understand what is Redux. Second is the React Redux project. And the third one is the Redux Thunk middleware project, where we understand how we can use the middleware in our Redux project. And the last one is the React Redux Toolkit project, which will take you an in-depth knowledge about using the Redux Toolkit in the React application. These videos will help to master the Redux for your interviews. The next important topic is how we can improve the performance of our React application. So for that, we should keep in mind a few techniques that every React project will need. First is the prevent re-renders. So we first have to analyze our code and find out which component or part of the component is getting re-rendered even if the values or the data doesn't change. We can do this in a few ways. If we want to memorize only the value, we can make use of a use memo or react.memo. If we want to memorize a whole function, then we can use the use callback hook. And lastly, we can make use of a pure component to prevent re-rendering of the whole component. But we have to be very careful while using the memoization, as sometimes it might be a very heavy operation as memoization uses memory to store values, functions or components. Now we have videos for all the three ways of memoization as we discussed, and you can watch them with examples and understand them in depth. We have videos on the use memo hook, use callback hook and pure components. The next technique is the code splitting. Most of the React applications have their files bundled using a bundler like Webpack, Browserify, and as our application grows, our bundle will also grow too. And you might end up your application loads too slow due to the heavy bundle. So we can make use of a code splitting in our app through dynamic import syntax. We don't have any videos for this topic, but let me show you the official documentation which you can follow and it also has examples. So this is the official documentation. You can go through it and you will also find the examples in it. And if you feel that a video is required for this topic, please let me know in the comment section. The next technique is the windowing. This is helpful when our application renders a long list of data, maybe hundreds or thousands of rows. Although all the data is not visible in the device viewport, but they are still rendered. And using React Window or React Virtualization, which are the popular libraries for windowing, will help us to render only a small subset of rows at a given time, which will dramatically reduce the time for rendering of the components and the DOM nodes created. So you can read on the official documentation. So this is the official documentation, and you can read about the React window and the React virtualize. And I have also found a very good article which is explaining about the both is the windowing bars. So you can go through this article and you can get some more knowledge on the windowing. And you can also add in the comment section if you need a video on this topic. And the last technique is the lazy loading. So in this, we should understand how we can use the React.lazy function to load the components lazily. And also we can optimize the application which has several images loading at the same time. So the lazy loading and the code splitting works together, and you will need to use the React.lazy. So here is the example how you can make use of a lazy loading of a component. So you can go through this documentation, and I'm going to add the link in the description of the video. Alright, so the next topic which I want to discuss is the React with TypeScript, as most of the companies uses TypeScript with React, and some topics you should know for your interviews, and that is how to set up a React project with TypeScript template. Have the understanding of the types and interface. A type is a definition of the type of a data that you will use, while interface are basically a way of describing the object. Third point is the TypeScript props, how you can use the props and define the types of the props with the help of interface. Next is to understand how to use the React hooks with TypeScript. And lastly, functions and events. As the way of writing is little different, you need to add the type of functions and events. Now the next question will be from where you will kickstart to learn the React with TypeScript. So I have a very good tutorial on the React with TypeScript where we build a small notes application and covers all these topics with practical example that can help you to boost your React TypeScript knowledge. Also, you can do a self-reading and use the official documentation which contains a good documentation and examples. So you just have to click on the Create React app, and when you click on it, you just go to the Get Started, and here you have a very good documentation like what the folder structure should be, how you can build your app, and you will find all the details here. Alright, and the last very important part of your preparation is that you are good in building applications, but that is not enough. You should be able to debug your application when an issue is raised, and you should be able to debug the issue and identify which part of the code is responsible for such issue and how you can fix that. So my approach is, first I always start with the application flow and read the error in the browser carefully, which indicates the file name and the line number that is generating the error. So we can now start debugging either by adding the console log and checking the values, or by adding a debugger in the code and running the code line by line to analyze the issue. Next, we can use the Redux dev tool. So if we are using the Redux state management library in our application, so the Redux dev tool you must have seen already in my React Redux tutorial, which helps to see the different actions that are triggered and the state of our application at each action. Let me show you the Redux dev tool in my browser. So this is the GitHub page of the Redux dev tool. And if I click here and go to the inspect, then inside the inspect, if I go to the Redux, then you will see that this is the Redux dev tool where you will have the action, state, and here you will list all the action creators. Lastly is the React profilers. So the React profiler measures how often our application renders and what is the cost of rendering. Its purpose is to help in identifying the part of the application that are slow and maybe benefit from optimization such as memoization, which we saw in our earlier slide. So I don't have any video on the React profiler, but on the official documentation of the React, you will find how to make use of the profiler in your application. So you can read this documentation and gain the knowledge of using the React profiler. You will find the usage, how you can add the profiler in your application, and how it works. So that's all I have in this preparation guide, although there are few more topics like React Storybook, Material UI, reusable components. I haven't added them here because I feel that those topics can be learned with the hands-on on the job and are very specific to the company usage. So if you like this video, a thumbs up is appreciated. You can also connect with me via Facebook or Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter for latest updates. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. Thank you. Thanks for watching.